Bertrand Russell once said one of his reasons for seeking love as well as truth in philosophy in his life was that it relieved that terrible loneliness of one shivering consciousness looking over the rim of the world into that cold, unyielding, lifeless abyss. I get that one. But loneliness and homesickness are not quite the same. My parents moved from Madison, Wisconsin, which I loved, to West Lafayette, Indiana, which is kind of a demotion, in 1968. What a portentous year that was. And I love Madison, but I wasn't homesick for Madison because they blew up the math science building that summer. And I was with my family anyway, even though that was, watching the Democratic National Convention. When I left graduate school in Worcester, Massachusetts, and it was Clark University, so that's where I learned all my Yiddish. Most of the kids there with were Ashkenazim, and I felt like the tall Midwesterner there, which was always funny because I was short in the Midwest. But that wasn't homesick. I was happy to leave. Even 2020, when I went through a COVID divorce, and we've had all of the stuff we've lived through, it's not so much homesickness as natural changes of life and what have you. So I had to think hard to figure out what homesickness really meant, because I've been so many places and left them happily to move on to something else, which I was looking forward to and desired more greatly than where I was. So I didn't feel homesick. But it was 2013 when I'd been with the woman I would eventually marry for 4 years. We'd had a hand fasting in 2012. So in 2013, I'd gone through some signal professional accomplishments. And I said, well, do you want to renew our hand fasting? There's a Celtic tradition of sort of pre-marriage. You get a year, and it's no shame if either one of you kicked loose. She kicked it loose. She said no. She was in her 20s. She wanted to have kids, have a family, be a mom, and she should. I was somewhat older than her. And so we agreed we should break up. We stayed living in my wonderful townhouse in Mount Joy, separate bedrooms by this point. But we shared her finding a job as a microbiologist, her finding an apartment, her outfitting her apartment, and all the things you do when you're preparing to move somewhere. I was sharing with her and getting pleasure out of it. And in fact, about a month before she moved, I took a long bike ride and had this epiphany and saw under an oak tree in the gorgeous central Pennsylvania countryside and imagined our children playing under that tree. And I thought maybe with this woman, I could go there again. I already had 2 older kids, but I was 59 at the time, and having more kids at that age was like scary. But I thought with her, I had the courage. So I called her up. We were meeting after work. It's like, I said, Lindsay, we're making a big mistake to break up now. And she basically said, I don't believe you. She talked herself out of loving me. She was flirting with other people. She's moving out. So I said, look, I've been through a lot in my life, so I'm going to give you a year and we'll see what happens. The weekend she moved out was Father's Day weekend in 2013, the summer before I turned 60. Lindsay had arranged, I'd always wanted to skydive, and I thought I should do it before I turned 60. The only skydiving place you could find that had a perfect safety record. No one had ever had an accident there in like 40 years, up in Allentown. Well, Friday night, her friend Liz, the pre-med, who's the efficiency expert, what have you, is coming to help her move out. And we hang out on my deck and, have some drinks and have a great time, because Liz was my friend too at this point. And then the next day I left to go to Allentown with my older son for Father's Day weekend. God, skydiving was a gas. Plus I kicked loose a big phobia of mine, but never mind, totally different story. And then Sunday we went for a hike, and I could dangle my feet off of a cliff and not be scared because I'd blown out that phobia skydiving. But when I dropped my older son off and then went back to my townhouse in Mount Joy, which I love, Lindsay's car wasn't in the driveway. There was already an absence. And then I walk in the house, and not only is Lindsay not there, but it's pristine, which it never was when Lindsay was there. They left me one of those little plastic parachute guys, hanging on the lamp, but the bottom totally dropped out for me. It was so empty. And it wasn't just that shivering consciousness of Bertrand Russell. It was homesickness. I was back in my townhouse, my house, but it wasn't a home anymore. Being homesick is when there's something that you miss that is still there that you want to go back to. And that was gone. That was empty. It was not there. The loving arms of coming home to someone you love, the golden smile, the love light in their eyes, gone. Well, a week later on the solstice, we got back together. So it's a happy ending in a sense, except we are now divorced. But that was homesickness. When you're home